taking long trips. Moccasins on like a Cherokee. Cruise the day till the stars peak. All these dreams with their arms reach. Every exhale it calms me. Trying to see the future like a palm read. And it looks so bright through this palm week. Good night, good night. I'll see you in the morning. Good night, good night. I'll see you in the morning. Good night, good night. I'll see you in the morning. Good night, good night. Good night, good night. Cone spark, jeans stone wash. Mind gone, I need on star. Remember a million seems so far. Me and my partners in my mom's car. Hot boxing, talking about how we gon'
Sneak This Podcast, episode 209. It's just me today. I know some of you guys like that, some of you don't like that, but you know, George is still sick. I think he's coming back next week, hopefully. Got an actual special guest on the line today, you know, obviously coming via Skype. We have Mache, you know, legendary sneaker customizer on the line.
Yes, sir. Here I am.
You know, and me, before we got started, you know, me and Mache were kind of talking, and I told him, you know, it was kind of funny how this even came about, because if you guys remember, we talked about his upcoming sneaker that's, you know, set to release in August for pre-order. And, you know, he sent me a message on Instagram, and, you know, he's a little bothered by, you know, some of the stuff I said, you know, regarding his baby.
You know, it's like when you're a parent, your first kid, you're always like, yeah, you want to put out the best foot, make everybody think that your kid's the best looking kid out there.
Yeah, and you know, I hope you know, take it as that, because I don't want to like offend anybody, but like, I'm only speaking from regular person, consumer, sneakerhead person, you know.
Oh, 100%. And that's the thing, like, I tell myself, like, when you're creating something, you always know that it's not for everybody, no matter what. And if someone does like everything, you're doing something wrong. And see, then like you said, you know, it's even going safer than you did, you know?
Yeah, and that was the thing, too. Like, it was like, well, we can talk about it. We'll talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
you know,
sure.
Appreciate everybody who likes, subscribes, comments, all that stuff to the podcast. You know, one of the, you know, things that we make sure we do is try to, you know, you're our very first guest after episode 200, you know, which, you know, is very big for us. You know, we wanted to kind of get through our top 50 sneakers of all time at first with George, you know, getting sick and haven't been on the show. So you are our very first guest, and I think you might be the first, you're high profile to us. You know, you're definitely more accomplished in your field than we are in ours. You know, very respected, you know, in the sneaker community. I mean, if you think of Sneaker Customizers, Mache is the first one amongst all sneakerheads, you know, depending on how long you've been in, you know, the sneaker community, quote unquote game, whatever you want to call it. Mache is definitely one of the people up there. So we definitely want to talk about his sneakers, and I kind of want to get his point of view on a few things and, you know, talk about the process of creating a sneaker. But I do always ask everybody, you know, have you picked up anything lately or this week or anything you're feeling?
Let's see. Well, got the Off-White 4s. Got those.
Well, you know, quick question real quick. Does a Mache have to work to get his sneakers?
Oh, yeah. It's a mixed bag. Sometimes, you know, they just show up. Sometimes just get them. Okay. It's definitely a mixed bag.
Well, that's kind of good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, because the thing is, even with, you know, these times, it's like you don't want to ask for stuff. I'm never that type of person. So when they show up, I'm always very happy.
You could ask, though, right?
Yeah, but I'm just not that guy because I know how it feels.
Okay. I mean, you know what's funny is I always think about that. You know, we get a lot of people sometimes to the show, never about sneakers yet, but, you know, just things in general. And they say, yeah, just hit me up, ask anytime. And, you know, it's just a weird feeling because I never know if that means now I owe you, you know.
Right. And that's obviously a person-to-person thing. Some people would be that way, and some people genuinely are just like, you know, out of the goodness of their heart. So, you know, it's just definitely a character thing. Yeah,
and I worry, like, within the position that we're in right now, other people are in bigger positions to give to us than we are to them. So it's like, if the person here says, yo, let me know if you need those, and I let them know, I don't have anything podcast wise to repay them. You know what I mean?
Right. But I also think if with them, I guess, extending that branch or whatever, they understand that situation. So if anything, you just take the relationship and kind of, you know, just cultivate it and whatever.
Right. And a lot of people do always thank us and appreciate us for just providing a free show. You know what I mean? It's a weekly show that does come out of our pocket.
No, 100%.
So, you know.
And the thing is, like, running the podcast is tough. You know, it's one of those things that you guys have to put a lot of time in, a lot of planning, you know, and God forbid, you know, when someone's sick, you know, the show must go on.
Oh, 100%. So what else you grabbed?
Let's see. The Lapstone and Hammer collab with the Philadelphia 76ers. I got the T-shirt.
Oh, okay.
It's like actually, my man Brian did look out for that one. So I'm always happy to support them.
I didn't even know that dropped until I went to the page to look at New Balance 327s, and I was like, wait a minute, all this is already sold out. When did it drop?
Yeah, I think it was Saturday morning, and I know everything went pretty quick. You know, the Eric Emanuel shorts, which no matter where they go on sale, they're getting sold out. So it doesn't even matter. And that was about it for this week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This week was kind of slow. You know, I tried later for the J. Cole Pumas.
Oh yeah, me too. I actually did talk to my guy from Puma, and they just, even the guys there were like, we don't even have pairs for ourselves.
Oh really?
So, yeah, they're limited, but they did say there are a lot more colorways are coming out.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 more colorways I already saw the other day. Limited on those. I guess I understood. I honestly thought I could get these later. Like, I didn't think much about it, but they jumped, you know.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, considering how the other Puma basketball shoes, the first one that came out that, aesthetically wasn't the best looking shoe, but it was the first Puma basketball silhouette, so there was a little more buzz around it, but then it kind of cooled off. So I think people thought they were going to sleep, but then, the J. Cole thing certainly did help, even though, you usually don't think of J. Cole as a fashion influencer, but it was a dope model. So, and the colors were nice.
The model was really dope. My whole marketing understanding of it, I've always, I would probably say besides Dion, for Concepts, which you talked to before, and we've talked to, from Riff, we talked to a bunch of people on this podcast, and I've always, one of these days, I do want to talk to somebody who was like inside these companies, because the marketing plan for the J. Cole's, I just didn't understand it. Like, I thought it was really heavy on J. Cole playing actual basketball.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I think that it's probably one of the few times that they can have an actual organic play, kind of mixing those things. I mean, you don't see Travis, skating and doing stuff like that, but J. Cole actually is a hooper, so it's kind of dope that it actually does have a real crossover. Yeah, I think the only other rapper I can think of that could have a shoe that actually plays sports is maybe Quavo, if anything.
Yeah, if anything, but I found it surprising because, like you said, when Puma did release the first basketball model, they actually have basketball athletes, and I don't see them anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Now, some of them aren't playoff bound in the bubble right now.
Right.
But still.
But you got Kuzma wearing them. You got Green wearing them.
You do have some athletes. You got Aiden with the Suns. You got Kuzma, like you said. So there are some Puma athletes. And I was like, okay, they got Master P narrating J. Cole. J. Cole looked like he ready for the offseason. He was ready to hit the court. And I'm like, okay, this is a little different, Yeah. But it did make it a little cool, though. But
and I actually remember when Puma really did go heavy last year at ComplexCon in Chicago, because I did an installation with them for with Clyde Frazier. I did some custom stuff, and that's actually when they did a whole big thing with Cole and Dreamville, and they did their own crossover. It was a whole big installation. It was a big to do, and it was cool. They had like a dunk contest and a bunch of street hoopers and whatever.
Oh, that's
and it was dope. Like they really do try hard to not look like they're trying hard, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so I respect it, and obviously I might be a little biased because I work with them. But I respect it.
That's one of my things with Puma is that I talked about like a few episodes ago. I was like, man, Puma has a lot of really nice stuff. When you look on the website, you're like, dang, this stuff is really nice, but you would never know it exists. And then I click it, and I'm like, well, let me see they got this colorway. So a lot of the sizes are gone. Like, people are actually, buying it. And I'm like, man, Puma has like the designs, it has everything. I mean, it has it there, but they're just not out there as much. And I will say, though, that All-Star Weekend, I do feel like Puma had a bigger impact than a few other brands out there, even Nike for a little bit, because I thought Nike's All-Star appearance, whatever, I kind of thought it took a backseat. I thought it was regular. I mean, you had the Off-White or, something that came out that week, a couple threes or whatever. And then you had Adidas with, Yeezy and the tank trucks, whatever, which was a story within itself, But one of the big stories was J. Cole on the sideline wearing those actual Pumas. And everybody was wondering what they were, because they were fire.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's the All-Star Weekend. It's funny because I remember even you go back to 2013, 2014, Nike always had those crazy rollouts with the whole All-Star packs, and they've gone away from that. And I think the winner of All-Star Weekend was probably New Balance with Joe Freshgoods. I mean, that was like the standout.
I was surprised with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for the guy. I mean, I think the fact that people are willing to stand in line overnight for some New Balances goes to show you, what an influence that he has. And obviously, in his hometown, people are going to show him love. But the fact that he does this tour around the country, not right now with COVID, but
right.
All his stuff selling out like hotcakes, and it's all genuine. It's not like I just think Joe's great.
Well, what's funny is like about that with that model, like I didn't expect that whatsoever. And New Balance is one of those brands where it's really hard to gauge what the public really thinks of New Balance. Like, we look at New Balance as like it has every single thing we want in a sneaker, all the elements. It has perfect shapes. It goes with everything you can wear. Has the best materials you can find.
Mad colorways,
really pricey. But New Balance, if you don't have certain New Balance models, and that usually falls under the Fresh Goods, the Figs, the Concepts. If you don't have certain models, you could feel like you're not going to garner the attention you could get if you paid a $250, $280, whatever New Balance might cost on something else.
No, 100%. I think that it kind of gets into that part where you want to go back and just get what you like, and not for, having someone look at your shoes and be like, oh, he's got the Ronnies on, he's got the Fresh Goods, he's got the, Jaden Smiths or whatever.
Right.
So it's tough in that respect, but it's also, New Balance got smart and was like, all right, well, we're going to work with these guys, and we're going to give Joe, let Joe run with the ball. And now kids in Chicago are checking for New Balances again. I mean, New Balance has never really left where I'm from, and like in like DC and stuff, because they're staples. But those kids that were checking for Yeezys and checking for Jordan 1s, now they're looking at New Balances, and now they're selling out. So it's like, it's cool to an extent. It's also good because now these kids are like, well, I didn't get these shoes, but let me see what other models they got. So then they discover the 1300s, and then discover the 574s. And then when MB1 comes back open, it's going to open up the floodgates, I think.
I hope so. I'm definitely excited for it. Which kind of, I guess I'll just kind of get into it. I do have a couple of questions for you, like with regards to, we're going to obviously talk about the Centralia and all that, and kind of get into, my take on it and, understand it. But, I've always wanted to ask you, in this sense of like, as a sneaker customizer, because like I said, like I'm not just me. I think a lot of sneakerheads who have been in this for a very long time, they know Mache. I mean, you've been on every single sneaker publication you could think of, whether or not you were actually interviewed. Like, somebody has always talked about Mache. You've been on every single sneaker show. You've been on podcasts. You've been on numerous things over the years, and every single sneaker internet publication you could think of. You've had some of the most legendary custom designs, in the past, even to this day still. And I always wanted to ask you, because we have a lot of personal friends and a lot of people who follow the podcast who are sneaker customizers. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of a two-part question, like with how much work you've put into it and how popular you are. I mean, you've worked with some great people, celebrities, athletes and stuff. Do you feel like you've been slighted by brands?
I wouldn't say it's slighted. I mean, I think it got to a point that, I've been doing it for almost 20 years now. So I feel like the younger generations may not even know who I am, but the people that I not grew up with, but like came up with, I mean, they're happy to see me kind of see the success, because I kind of feel like I'm kind of running with the ball with that generation, if that makes sense.
Right.
The guys that were doing the Soul Collector forums and the Nike Talks back then. A lot of these new kids, they don't even know what that is. They know what YouTube is.
Right.
That's about your Instagram. And, it kind of shows my age, but it also just kind of shows how much I've seen and what I've learned. But slated for the brands, I don't know. It got to a point where, when I started, I saw like what Sabotage was doing and Methamphibian, and, they were getting collaborations with brands, like Sabotage got an SB,
right,
and then they got a DC collab. And then I look at like Futura and Stash, and like when I started, that's why I envisioned myself, like that was like the pinnacle, that was the goal. Like, I want to get a Mache shoe,
right?
I want to get an Air Max with my whatever, and it never really happened, and which was I'm not going to say it wasn't frustrating, because it certainly was, because I was like, what, I'm working with LeBron, I'm working with all these people. What else do I got to do? And I always kind of like that mindset kind of haunted me. And, then it was just kind of like flipping the switch and just realizing that, okay, man, this is not the route that's for me. And, as soon as I kind of got over that part and trying to feel like I had to appease other people, the better off I was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I always look towards people who have been a part of the sneaker, community or whatever, as far as like how hard they work and what they've done to reach the level that they've at. And like I said, you've reached that top. And I think it's at some point, like, I'll even say like with podcasts. So when you first start a podcast, you think like, wow, maybe Nike will want us to be the Nike podcast one day.
Right. I'm going to be the Joe Rogan of
right. You really have these things about, these certain views about it. And, when we very, very first started out, like you talk about our age, like, you have that mindset, or even think like, man, maybe Nike will send us free sneakers or we'll get Yeezys. You think this stuff. And then once you're in like year 3, 4, you're like, oh yeah, this isn't going to happen. You've like opened yourself up to this like bigger reality. But I think it helps you a lot more. Like you said, it opens your mind. Like, you know what? I've thought this, but no, I've come to the realization that it's not, and it's going to help me go into a better direction.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of parlaying that is, when I launched the YouTube last year, it was a thing where, my following was large, on Instagram and whatever. And I was like, oh, well, YouTube, that'll be fine. I'll get subscribers like that. And, it was a slow and steady climb, but it certainly wasn't. I had these ideas of grandeur of thinking, I'm like, yeah, I'll have 1 million subscribers in X amount of time. Nah, that's not how it works. So, it's like, all right. And so, but then I also know, being friends with Jock, who's, is a master of YouTube and sneaker YouTube, it might take 5 years for one video to get seen and go viral. So you never know. So I just kind of enjoy the process and just keep doing it. And people, the people that do watch it, they enjoy it. So it's like, why not just keep documenting it? Because I do so many projects with, people that are notable. And this might be the only chance that someone who's a fan of my work might be able to see an interaction with their favorite athlete or their favorite WWE wrestler or, rapper or whatever. So it's like, why be greedy and just hold these experiences for myself?
How do you feel? So in your video, when you're, sort of introducing the centrality and stuff like that, one of the first things that you mentioned was, before even considering having your very own sneaker. And I want to make that clear for everybody who's listening, like his own sneaker, not a version of another sneaker. You said that you're an artist versus a designer.
It's different. And the reason why is, I have a fine arts background. I was doing paintings and murals and things like that all my life. I was drawing. And, designer, that's a little more of a, industrial design. You're busting out more measurements, and you can kind of tell a difference. Like, I'm someone, I never thought of building something from the ground up. I always just thought I would put my art on something and make something that was already existing cooler or better. And I just got to a point where I was just kind of like, all right, well, I've done all these things and I don't really see the collaboration with the sneaker brand happening. And I was just kind of like, I think it's time to do it, because the idea has been thrown at me for years and years, between friends or just colleagues and whatever, and I just never really felt comfortable, because stepping out of your comfort zone, no matter what it is always scary. And being comfortable and knowing I can do custom artwork has always been simple to me. It never really became difficult. It was something that I'm efficient at. I can bang out a portrait in a day, which might take another customizer a week. It just got easy. I won't say easy, but you know what I mean? Like, it was, right. I just got better at it. And I just didn't know what that next step was. And I was like, I think it's time for that shoot to happen. Like, what else is there to do, in my space?
I don't want to say, why do you feel like something, I have a lot of friends who like do custom sneakers and stuff. And, I would think that you guys, your guys' culture would be some of the first people that you would go to like have a little section in the brand or some sort of collaboration project every year to do so. And, I've always like what are your views on like a Don C or like a Virgil, respectfully in your guys' craft of work, I guess, and I hate to bring them up, and I only say that because like I don't view Don C as a designer, and people might, and I guess artists might be proper. I don't know if he draws or anything.
It's tough because when you deal with someone like a Virgil or like a Don, it's different because I think they have the ideas, and they luckily have, I think, people that can help carry out that idea. Because here's the thing. What Don has done, and obviously and Virgil's associations with who they associate with,
right.
Whether it's Kanye, whether it's all these other people,
right?
The brands are going to work with people that they think move the needle, whether it's that culturally or whatever. And they obviously saw what Virgil did with Off-White at the time, and they saw an opportunity to let him do something. That's as much as I know. When I look at it, it's like Don had the two he freaking murdered. I think it was great. I think when he was doing the hats and doing the shorts. Obviously I know what people were doing the hats,
right.
with the snake skin and stuff. But I think Don was the person to kind of bring that out to the mainstream. So then the hype beast, blogs or whatever are getting eyes on, as opposed to like the local guy that's sewing python on a brim.
Right.
So I think they see them as as much as I hate using these like tastemaker words. They are, people look at their style and see them doing something, and they see that people are getting a reaction from it, and it's like, why not, put your eggs in that basket with them, because they've proven that people will pay attention to what they're doing, what they're coming out with, and like those twos are dope, like the ones that that Don did,
right?
The blue ones were fire. And
so then what is like so then would that be for you, like what is considered like the dark days for you, like a creator? Like I feel like when you're a creator, you just have these moments of, man, what am I doing type thing.
Oh yeah, well, as a creative person, you always want to have time to do stuff for yourself. And if you have an idea, like there's been times where I'll have something pop in my head in the middle of the night, and it might be an idea on a shoe or whatever. And this is more like in the early days too, because like before iPhones, I would like have a notebook of just ideas I'd write down like next to my bed, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'd jot it down because I knew I'd forget it when I woke up. But then the idea would like fester in me until I actually got it out. Even if I had like a bunch of orders, if I had this idea and it just kept poking at me, I couldn't move past it until I got that idea out. And I think what happens is as great it is to have lots of orders and work with people and have customers, you still got to have every once in a while to give yourself that opportunity to get something out for yourself, to kind of just let your own creative flow go, because
right.
When you're carrying out something, even though you're very proud of the artwork, it's still someone else's idea, someone else's vision. So every once in a while you got to give yourself that little break to just kind of do a me project, and then you kind of can go back into the grind, if grind is even the right word for it.
Do you feel like it's fair for people to critique art?
Art's really subjective, because at the end of the day, like even me, like I'll look at some stuff and be like, I don't get it. I'm someone that respects realism and things like that, but then I'll see like a Jackson Pollock painting and be like, my wife could do that. So right. It's tough, because, and then you go into custom shoes. Some people don't like what I do, but then they love some other guy's stuff, and I'm like, I don't get it. So it's kind of hard to just be like, this is good, this is bad, because there is such a gray area and people's tastes are totally different.
See, I think that I feel the same way, like about art. Like, there are work where I'm like, man, like, me and my wife will go to museums, or we'll go anywhere. Every time we go out of town, we go to like a museum. That's like our thing. Like, we have to find a museum to go to. And there are certain things where I'm like, I could honestly do that. Like,
yeah.
And I was an architect major in the past, and I've drawn a lot in the past, and there are things where I'm like, I know for a 100% fact I could do that. That is not even a question. Okay.
Right.
And even though with those type of things, I may feel like I can do it, but I feel like I can never critique it. It's something about sculptures, paintings, drawing, stuff like that. I feel like I can never critique, because like you said, it is, it's like an emotional based thing. It's a feeling. Now, When it comes to sneakers and, one thing that we do in this podcast, if we love it, we love it. If we like it, we like it. We don't, we don't. We've criticized a lot, and a lot of it is the whole basis of the podcast was like a text message thread. That's how we talk in a thread. That's how we talk to each other, and we're sharing with everybody else. Were you a little offended by what I said about the Centralia?
Not so much about because you said it was cool and whatever. And the thing is, like I said, like not everyone is going to like everything, and that's totally fine. Offended is definitely not the word, though. I think it was more of just trying to give a little more context to maybe help you form your opinion, because I think some of the things you said may have just been said because it was just like looking at the shoe and basing your thing, which is totally fine.
I had watched the video before.
Oh no, I saw it. Actually, it was funny because I listened to the podcast before I saw the video, so I saw that you actually showed it and stuff.
Yeah, and I watched it and I understood it and everything, and then I watched it about two other times. And then I watched you on the Slam Kicks thing, which I've never watched anything Slam Kicks have done. And I only watched that because I've listened Complex podcast. I've never listened to them ever. And I saw you on there and I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this one because I was having a really hard, I was telling my wife, I said, oh man, I don't know how Mache took it, and I don't know how he'll take it, us talking on the phone conversation wise back and forth about his thing. And then I went back and you had mentioned they had brought up Slam Kicks. So I went and watched that real quick. Then I came back and finished that podcast, and watching the video and everything, I 100% understood where you were coming from. And if you want to talk about the video a little bit, actually talk about Centralia just in general, the name and everything for the listeners.
All right. Well, Centralia is it's a ghost town now in Pennsylvania, and what it was years and years ago was a mining town. And what ended up happening was there was fires that burned underneath the ground, and they emitted gases, and it just made it unsafe for people to live there. And actually, fires still burn underground till this day. So, I'd say almost everyone has vacated the city or the town now. And over probably the last 10, 15 years, there's a main highway that was also, became vacant. And what people would do was they would actually go to the highway and start tagging on the highway, for years and years and years. It became like a little folklore thing or a cool thing to go and tag, the highway, and it was, and becoming the graffiti highway. And like a year ago, they finally decided they wanted to make it so people couldn't go there, because people started to vandalize the woods around it and outside of there. So they finally put dirt over the highway, and now there's no reason to go there. So that's what the Centralia is and what it's based off of. But now for the whole overlying thing, we're doing the series to have to do with travel. I know I touched on that on the video.
Right.
So every colorway that we're going to come out with on the Mache Runner is going to be based on another place in America that people can go and visit or, shed light on. That was inspiration, whether it's, out of beauty or a history or whatever. Because, I know I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit, so I apologize. But we wanted to just have it so people can, appreciate that there are so many things here that we could do. You could hop in the car and go visit these places. And it's actually funny because, I know you guys are from Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So I've been to Sedona. I freaking love it there. And the colors and the rocks and all that stuff was actually one of the things on the list of possible colorways. So shout out to Arizona. I liked it there.
Right.
But yeah, so we're going to be doing 5 colorways. That's going to take us into the end of next year. And everyone has a different story. We're doing clothing to go with every single one, special packaging to go with every single one. And, we want to encourage people to go and visit these places with the shoes and, take pictures and, kind of get, the places involved. And, once I start rolling out the other colorways and places, people, hopefully, when the world kind of gets back to normal, if that happens at some point, I pray, people can start to go see these really cool places they may have never even known about.
The travel and when I listened to all that, and that was my whole thing when I watched the video, I thought the story of Centralia was great. I had never heard of it. Never heard of that area, never heard of that town. Your description of the graffiti and, the vandalism in the woods and stuff like that. I was like, oh man, you know what I mean? And I thought that story, to me personally, looking at the sneaker, I didn't think the story matched with it. And with an artist like you. So, you know what? Let's back to art. So when I think of like, was it Andy Warhol? You know, you think of like the tomato can of soup. Is that chicken noodle soup?
Yeah.
Yeah. You think of the can of soup. Like, I think of something iconic for like all artists. And I think when it comes to Mache, and that's for everybody who is recognized, you know, understands you, recognizes you, your work and stuff, I think of the LeBron Iron Man as sort of like your, now there could be other ones, but to me, the LeBron Iron Man pack, you know, that you had made for him, I look at that as like your Andy Warhol can of soup to me.
Right. No, I agree. And I think a lot of people would probably agree with that.
Right. And so then, like, I think Mache, like art, even with your collaboration with Ewing, with Ventura, you know, was kind of like out there, pattern. And in the video, you said the graffiti thing. You said of what you wouldn't wear. Like, you thought about what you would wear. And you know, I thought the complete opposite. I thought like, oh man, Mache, this is about to look crazy. Like, this is about to be wild. You know what I mean?
Right. And
it was really tamed. And that's why I used the word safe. And I used the word safe as if like you can't say it's a bad shoe. Like you can't even, not even a question. It's not a bad, the great looking shoe. I like the shape. I like the way it looks on foot. I like the colors. I like everything about it. But when I think of Mache, that's where I missed the disconnect.
Okay, and I can understand that, but also I think when you think of that, and I'll be kind of keep it 100 with you on this one. You know, when you guys were describing me before the thing, you know how to say my name, because you're like, I don't even know how long, you know, what the guy's name is, so you don't know how many things I've done over those 20 years. And yeah, Iron Man is kind of like my coup de grace, and you know, people know me for that, but there's so many other things that I do. You know, I do just clean color blocking customs. I do a whole bunch of different kinds of things. And honestly, like, I think if people, I want to certainly appeal to a wider range than just custom fans.
Right.
And, you know, I wanted to design a shoe that's just like, you know, someone who may not even know who I am could be like, that's a dope shoe. You know, just kind of like how you did. Like, okay, it looks cool. You know, whatever. Yeah. And that's what we want to go for. You know, is it a safe thing? I don't know if it's so much safe as it is just a balanced design and just something that kind of appeals more to my personal aesthetics.
Okay.
But in terms of colors and pops and things like that, like the grays obviously represent, you know, the cement and the colors. And I know I described all that stuff, but I just felt like color blocking wise, it was a clean looking shoe. And actually,
it's very clean looking.
Yeah, and that just kind of reflects my style too. You know, just like I'm someone who, you know, as we talk, you know, I'm certainly a big New Balance fan. I'm an Air Max fan, you know, and you can certainly see inspirations from some of those things in the lines and, you know, whatever.
Now, see, but, I wouldn't have. Now, I don't know that. I think that might be the thing too, is like your style. I've never known like Mache's style. Like, you know, you see, you know, things he's worked on, whatever he's posted on the internet. You see art here and there. And that would be it. So like it was always like the creative side of Mache, but like I didn't know, like, does Mache like does he wear off-white 5s, or does he wear off, you know, or is that too much for him, or is he more of a you know, whatever?
Oh yeah. Speaking in the third person, yeah, Mache wears off-white 5s.
Okay. So and that was like, you know, the whole thing with the shoe, because it was like I liked the shoe. I thought the shoe was dope. Like I said, I thought it was a little safe. And I said with me, and I didn't explain it that well the first time we talked about it, but like I said, like when I think of Mache, I think like, oh man, it's about to be crazy. And I don't know how that works when you did the collaboration with Ewing or anything. I was like, that joint was crazy. Like, yeah, it was clear.
And I think and I'll be honest with you, working with Ewing was obviously great, and being someone who's from New York, you know, Ewing is certainly something that, as a nostalgia thing, it was very dope, and the guys were great. But, you know, 41-year-old Mache isn't going to be wearing a Ewing high like that. Right. You know what I mean?
Neither are we. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But, you know, but I knew that based on that model, I could go crazy with patterns and things like that, because I think it fit that model. You know, when you're going with a runner, I guess based on just, you know, maybe doing some market research and kind of seeing, you know, what works and what doesn't and what's popular and things that I like. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm a fan of what Ronnie's done with color blocking on Asics and things like that. You know, colored toes. I mean, you always know a salmon toe is, right, you know, one of his most popular colorways. but I was always a fan of that kind of stuff, and I always knew that, you know, when I did do a shoe, I'd make color blocking a really, really important part of it. And like for the insoles, you guys haven't really seen that yet. That actually has all the graffiti on the inside of it, so it's all tagged with the cement, and actually special packaging is going to be reflecting Centralia too. So like a lot of the crazy stuff that you'd probably expect for me usually painting on the outside of the shoe is more on the inside, and that kind of makes it a little more of an experience, and you know, helps tell that story a little more. And you know, we're also gonna
no go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and we're gonna include some other things in the packaging just to kind of help tell that story too.
Is this going to be considered luxury?
When I designed it, I was looking at it as like my NFL guys wearing it in the tunnel, or like the NBA guys wearing it in the tunnel. So I think I kind of look at it as like a luxury runner, but obviously not like a Balenciaga price point. It'll probably be half that price, which is still expensive, but also still a lot cheaper than going to Barney's and getting, you know, something else that may have even lesser materials.
So what is that around?
It's gonna be that 300 ballpark. Okay. That's gonna be with the packaging and stuff like that. Because you know the fact is, you know, the Made in America was obviously very important. You know, if I went and did it overseas, the prices would be a lot cheaper. But I wanted to again be able to have my hands on that stuff and kind of see how things go, check in and make sure that, you know, things are right. And you know, we made like 3 different samples of this one. I kept changing because it wasn't right. So, you know, and actually the one that I've been wearing is actually not the final sample. There's like 3 little changes on it. And actually one of them is actually addresses one of the feedbacks that you guys had about the branding. Because my signature is going to be embroidered on the tongue. That's my brand. Right.
And I saw a video or something you had described that you said like it was going to be the same shade of red as the tongue, I believe.
Yeah, on the Centralia, yeah. And on the different colorways, there'll be different treatments and stuff.
So like, yeah, branding, like that was one of the things that I did say. Like I felt like it needed a logo, and you know, and I want to say this real quick to you, Mosh. Like I don't want you to take anything I'm saying like you should have did this. Like why didn't you do that?
Oh no.
Well, no, I had a guy on the podcast a long time ago, and he was like selling t-shirts, and I was like, man, you know, you should get the t-shirts at Sneaker Con. You should, you know, hey, these people that people find important. And he was like, don't tell me what to do. And I was like, okay, Michael, you know, I'm bro, like, I'm nowhere near Mosh level in the podcast world. Like, well, Sneaker podcast world, Sneaker podcast world, I'm actually pretty up there. I'm really good, but podcast world, no. So like, I was like, man, I love new logos, you know what I mean? And I always said with Under Armour, and this is just my own personal view when I look at stuff, I look at Under Armour, I said, you know what? I think one of the issues with Under Armour is the logo. The logo has never been, I don't want to say attractive, because at some point every logo has to go through a phase. And I think even like, I think back to Reebok. Reebok had the original, like it was like the British flag at one point. Then it was like the vector. And then it went from the vector to like this triangle thing with MMA, and it went to something different. It was like, dang, go back to the vector. Like even though it may not have been fully respected back in this period of time, we all respected a whole lot more now.
And you knew what it was. You looked at it, you know, like a Jumpman, you know, a swoosh, you know, 3 stripes. Right. I get that.
So is there a plan maybe down the road or later or anything for a branding Mosh logo? Your most popular logo is your signature, which we see that all the time.
And that's what I'm gonna stick with. I mean, just because, I mean, you look at Stash, I mean, that's what he signs it with, that's what Futura signs it with. And I'm not comparing myself to them, but you know, as an artist, you know, whenever I finish up with a custom, the last thing I do is I sign the shoe, and that's how people know it's a Mosh shoe. So I feel like that's the best way to do it. And like, I don't know, I always feel like the branding should be there so people know it's me and they want to represent me. But I think the design is just as important to me. You look at some of these designer shoes. I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to riff off the head. Like a lot of them, the branding isn't really big, but you know that's a triple S. I mean, that's like a horrendous shoe, but but you know what it is. And with, you know, I just want to be something clean and wearable, man. You know, it's something that with time, you know, it still looks good. Like I've been wearing this shoe for the last like 2 weeks just around, and you know, they're holding up great. And well, I'm actually excited to get that final sample just to kind of see, you know, how the couple little changes and how they look, and then so I can finally get these things on sale so everyone can start buying them.
Well, it was funny was because like I was telling somebody, I said, I know for a fact, I was telling a homie, we were texting, and I said, yeah, Mache is going to come on. I said, I don't know if he is or isn't, but I said, hopefully he does. And he was like, you know what? I think I know I think he might have manufactured this in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And he said, I know where this, because he did a lot of work with the manufacturing side with Clark's, I believe.
Okay.
So, he did. I just want to tell his business. But, he did a lot of stuff. And he said, I think this was part of that. And the branding, I forgot what the sole's called. What's it called?
The Vibram.
Vibram. That's used on Clear brand, right? Yeah, okay. Very comfortable. And I said, I know for one thing, these are going to be very, very comfortable. Now,
and
I will. now, when seeing the sneaker itself, when I saw it, and I could be wrong because I don't want to hamper your vision and design for it. But when I initially look at the sneaker, and I think a lot of people will, you kind of see hints of influence from other sneakers that we've grown up with.
Yeah, and I think the most important part was when I drew it, it was the shape of the shoe first. Okay. Kind of came first, and then I busted out the iPad and just started sketching to kind of get that. And I know, if you're a runner collector, and how people are really, really picky about the shape of an Air Max 1.
Oh, yeah.
Making sure it doesn't look like a banana, or the A6 has the point, or the 1500 New Balance has a point, or whatever.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that the silhouette was right first, and I kind of filled in the blanks after that. Then once I got the shape, that's when we went into the Vibram catalog and figured out what kind of tooling we wanted to use. I literally could have picked anything, but I knew that a runner was kind of that vibe I wanted to go with, just because, as a big dude trying to be comfortable, just knowing what I would want to wear every single day, being a fan of 990s and things like that, I wanted it to be like that. With the upper, I was just sketching lines that flowed. I wanted to make, if you look, a lot of the things run parallel. There's layers. I think if you can compare that part to the Sakai's, because layering is a very very in thing. So there's certainly influence of what's popular, but it's also just things I like. So you see materials and whatever, but the color blocking, there's some things that anyone could see, I could see where that might have come from or whatever. But at the end of the day, it was more of just getting the shape right and making sure that everything flowed nicely and didn't look like jagged edges, and just something clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I was going to ask you too, why the decision to go pre-order with this one?
Biggest thing is because with the first thing, you never know how many you're going to sell. You don't want to make 1,000 pairs of shoes and have them just sit there and maybe sell 10, because I have no idea. I have no idea how. Well, yeah, people are going to take to it. And I
think that question more is the process, because I don't know, a lot of listeners to this, you have these granular ideas of just growing up as a kid, I want to make my own sneaker one day, but you don't know.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
there's so much that goes into it.
Okay, so you in the video said that this started in February, this whole process or thought process of it, which I kind of
finally get it going. Yeah, okay, it's actually really, really quick.
And I thought that was a pretty quick. I was like, wow, February. I thought things like this, in my mind, I feel 2-3 years, it takes to get, to this point.
Also, a lot of that has to do with development, usually of tooling. And, when you're working with something that's existing, that's part of it.
Okay.
And then also a lot of it is just running things past other people's tests for approvals. When you think of when a LeBron comes out, they have that usually planned 2 or 3 years in advance, because they have to get that approved and, either wear test things and make things right, and whatever. They're usually coming up with everything from scratch, and they're making molds, and they're doing a bunch of crazy stuff that some of these things that we didn't have to do, thankfully. And certainly being made over here speeds up that process a lot more than having to wait 90 days for it to come back on a boat from wherever country it's getting manufactured.
Right.
So that helps the process a lot. With a pre-order, something like this is, when people get a custom shoe, normally for me, you're waiting about at least 6 months for a private order, just because the backlog's that crazy. So, people that have already gotten custom stuff from me, they understand there's a wait. Mm-hmm. So when they only have to wait maybe 8 weeks as opposed to 8 months, it's certainly a lot more appealing. And, and also the price point's a lot cheaper than getting a Mache custom. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that was we've been talking about pre-orders a lot on this show, with, we talked about, obviously, and which I would ask you, your relationship with Devlin, FBCC from Side Collective. And, we talk about pre-orders, and we've been talking about pre-orders with baseball hats, baseball hats and everything has just been out of control lately. And, brands have been given the opportunity for people to pre-order. And, sneakerheads are probably top 5.
Impatient.
Say what? Yeah, impatient.
Impatient.
We're the most impatient, yet our attention spans are small, and we critique everything, and we have the answers to everything. Sneakerheads are a unique bunch of individuals, and we love to make that determination of like something that is just unreal, undeniable fire. Like, oh my God, it's the most incredible fire I've ever seen in my entire life. And then when you have the opportunity to pre-order it, it's like, man, I don't know. Like,
you don't want to wait that long. I get it.
And I've bypassed that. Like, you talking about you're 41, I'm 37, George is 40. Like, we've passed that. Once we declare fire, you order it, you wait. And I always find it funny with sneakerheads is because it's like we have a closet full of dead stock sneakers, but for some odd reason we can't wait a few months for another one to come in. Like when we have others we haven't even wore yet. So
right.
With that process, like you said, pre-ordering. So is that like just an option that you can do? Like, how does that work? Like, I just figured that a manufacturer or anybody you would go with would say, hey, you have to make 500 pairs for us to do this.
Well, that's the joy of working, with someone like the studio in Philadelphia that I'm working with.
Okay.
There's no minimum, no whatever. And obviously, the more shoes you make, just like anything in volume, it costs less the more you make and all that stuff. But, at the end of the day, it's it just makes more sense because then you can just kind of put the order in and they make the shoes as opposed to having, it's kind of like, how do I compare it? It's either procrastinating and like having all the shoes wait and people knowing that they're waiting for it or waiting for a release date, or they're knowing the shoe's coming and they already have it and it's just they're gonna have to wait regardless, instead of. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get it,
Yeah.
Yeah, like with whoever you went with or the manufacturer, the company or whatever, like is this like a thing where you almost have to be somebody to even get this opportunity, or could anybody say, hey, I want to make a sneaker?
Anyone can do it, but the thing is a lot of people just don't either have the means to do it because it does cost a lot of money to start. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to get like into numbers or counting pockets, but like,
I'm sure I certainly got an education myself. Just because again, like everybody else, I was someone who had these big dreams. Like, yeah, we're gonna make a shoe because I even asked my guy at Fatty, I'm like, so can anyone just come and do it? He's like, yeah, they can, but he's like, it's they also, I guess they're kind of selective in who they work with. But if someone has an idea and knows how to make order the last to create the shape of the shoes, you have to order last for every single size that gets made times however many pairs. So it's if you're trying to make things in volume, that's all stuff that has to be accounted for. You just don't make a shoe, then you just make it a size smaller. It's like, kind of like when you see like someone do like a rework of like a Jordan 1 and they don't use the correct last, you see the shape looks a little funny.
Right.
So you have to make sure that the shape is correct. So those are all things that, and people that don't really know the whole process take into account. So there's a lot more to it that I found out myself, and I'm sure if someone else has done the same thing, they found out as well.
So when you begin the process of building the shoe and picking the colors and materials and stuff like that, was that like your first time actually seeing how you could affect the price by what you choose?
No, I knew that just from being a customizer and working, having relationships with Dom and JBF and all these other guys that do that kind of stuff. So I know if I went and pulled out Python and Crocodile and whatever, right, it would be easily be $1,000, $1,500 shoe, no matter what. So still going with like the higher end nubucks and suedes and stuff like that. It's still pricey, but it's certainly I wanted to keep it more realistic because my goal was always to be able to have people that actually wanted to have my shoe to, for the most part, try to be able to afford it. If it's an investment. I mean, I remember when I was, 12 years old in 1990, getting my first pair of Jordan 5s. I saved money in mowed lawns and shovel driveways, all winter and summer to be able to afford that one shoe. And I want someone else to have, someone to support me and wants to get my shoe that they can still do the same thing.
Do you think price could be an issue?
I mean, I think price is an issue for anything. I mean, some people can't afford to buy milk. Some
right.
people can't afford, whatever. And the thing is, I mean, I was, as someone who grew up in a trailer park, I knew when things weren't for me. and unfortunately, I'm sure some people won't be able to afford it, but then the people that can, awesome. But what's also good is, people can still support because we're going to be designing, different clothing and things like that they can afford. That's obviously a lot cheaper.
Will clothing be pre-order, or is that?
What was that? Sorry.
Sorry. Will clothing be pre-order, or?
Some of it will be. Like the simpler things like hats and stuff will be ready to go. But I'm actually designing some cut and sew stuff that I'll be getting all pre-ordered too. But that'll obviously be quicker too.
What's the timetable?
What's that?
What's the timetable to get the shoes?
We're looking at 8 weeks. That's tops.
Okay.
That's tops. No matter how many we make, we ended up delaying it a little bit because we ordered more soles. The soles are the only thing that had to get specially made because everything else, is getting made from Vibram because I got stuff with special colors and stuff, and they can't just use like the black sole. So I wanted to make sure I got it right so it flows. So like the outsole of the shoe will be navy blue with the pink hit as opposed to black like it is now. Right. So that slowed it down a little bit, but I'd rather, again, make that process right than just rush it and not put out something I'm not 100% happy with.
And, one thing I've always wanted to know when it came to, sneakers and, making the decisions for stuff like that, because we always see, even with Nike and other brands, the samples of what it looked like originally come out and whatever. And these decisions that you make, does that become more costly, or is this like, I don't want to like, you know what I mean? Because like when this type of stuff to like a lot of listeners and even to myself is like foreign land. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, of course.
So it's like,
and I'm happy I can kind of help shed some light on it.
Right. And I would love to like think that like I go in there and I say I want to make this, and they say cool, and we start cutting it, and then I say, you know what, I want to change the color of the tongue to this, and do they say, yeah, if we change the color right now from red to green, that'll be $10,000, or like. Right.
Well, I mean. It depends on the material. Like if you're just changing colors and stuff, usually that doesn't affect the price. Okay. But like I said, if you're going from like nylon to python, that's obviously a difference.
Yeah. Well, because you guys said like the slight changes that you're going to make, like the mosh being put on the tongue, like
that doesn't affect that. Oh, okay. It's all pretty much just me being like anal retentive and making sure it's perfect, as opposed to making drastic changes. Like what you're seeing is 98% what you're going to see.
Are we going to be able to pre-order all colors, or is this just going to be the first one pre-order?
Just the first. Well, they're all going to be pre-ordered, but they're all going to be, as soon as this one goes on pre-sale, we'll already start working on, the next colorway, because I already have all the colorways set. It's just a matter of rolling them out. And luckily, after the first one, pre-orders won't take as long because, again, we ordered soles for all the colorways, so they're all coming at once.
So what's the like, what was I going to say? Is like the next one already in the works, or is this like...
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Like I said, and I remember you actually... I keep going back to things you referenced because obviously...
Yeah, no. I
started listening a little harder. But I was like, yeah. So, they do have a story and everything does kind of continue into each other. The 5 colorways are planning on taking me into 2021. Okay. And I'm already working on another model. Like, I don't work as feverishly as my man Devlin does with the colorways, but right? But definitely we'll be keeping flowing into, stories and how they flow into each other. And I think once they see the first one and get an opportunity to, kind of see more of the stories, I think they'll hopefully want to buy them all. Hopefully,
right? And does that hinder continuing this? Like I've been telling a lot of people, even during quarantine, we were one of the few, if only, sneaker podcasts that like really kept going during quarantine and stuff like that, because I felt like it's very important as a creator to do so. And even when you start something, like you yourself starting doing customizations 20 years ago, you could have easily been like, oh, that was fun, and stopped, and you might not be where you are right now. And I always encourage people to like keep going. Does Centralia, what happens with Centralia with all 5 colorways? Because I'm assuming that all 5 colorways are going to come out no matter what. Even if the first colorway comes out, and let's say, obviously we know that's not going to happen because you have a very big following and very big supporters and stuff. Let's say you got way less pre-orders than you thought. Are we still going to get the other colorways?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, does that hinder you as a creator? Because a lot of creators, including myself, I have a very fragile ego when it comes to my podcast and how good it looks and all that stuff. Would it hinder the next model coming out? Or is this like a no, I'm full steam ahead. There's going to be a Mache every single year. This is my brand and we're going to keep going with this.
Well, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you take that risk and you jump out the window. I mean, you really don't know what you're going to do. I think doing the 5 colorways to start is probably as far ahead as I'm looking.
Okay.
In terms of, just to kind of, when the Centralia colorway comes out, I think that it'll at least get a gauge for interest. I mean, because, obviously when you get your friends and your boys and, your people that follow you on Instagram say the shoe's dope, of course they're going to say that because they're being supportive of what you're doing. Just like your mom thinks you're the best athlete and the best looking kid. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm very realistic about that part. So, when, sales happen, I don't know if I'm going to sell 10 pairs or 10,000 pairs. Who knows? I have no idea. Am I confident in the next colorways? Hell yeah. I got some dope colorways coming out that I think, people are going to gravitate towards, maybe even more than Centralia, because I think I like them all. I mean I designed them, so of course I do.
You know what I thought?
I'm pretty confident.
And based on what you're saying right now, you know what I thought? I think I thought the model was considered Centralia, and then your colorways were just the additional story. So just this one colorway is Centralia.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
So then the next one will be something else. So is this model just called Mache Runner?
Mache Runner. Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I thought the model was Centralia, and okay. Well, that's cool. Like I definitely interested in what the next one will be called. Be after that then. And like I said, I love the shoe. I think it's a good looking shoe. It's just my whole mindset of like, Mache did that, that's sort of tame. But hearing you talk about it, which I'm glad we had this conversation. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to tell you something perfectly honest with you. I seen you on Full Size Run with Dion Point. I think you were with Dion, right?
No, that was Geiger.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So,
but I'm just as soft spoken.
No. Well, you know what? I never had really heard you do a ton of speaking. So I had been going back listening to a few things, and I said, "Oh man, he's not as booming as a lot of other people." Which I'll ask you about, like your relationship with Devlin from FBCC.
The polar opposite of the spectrum.
The polar opposit of the spectrum of like personality wise. You know what I mean?
Ebony and ivory.
Yeah. So so how did that relationship kind of get started? Because I'll tell you this, with the Culture Vulture, that Mache, the half camel with the thing is fire. And there are a lot of people who are waiting for that one to go up, at some point, which I don't know if you have anything
I'm excited for it. And the thing is, Devin was cooking so many variations of that thing after I did my part. He just keeps showing me these crazy photos that he hasn't even shown yet. I'm just like, oh my God.
Well, yeah, see, that's why like it's such a different spectrum and like with Devlin, you can't touch Instagram without seeing a new colorway or a new, whatever with him. And then when it comes to like the Centralia, I don't know the very, you know what I mean? It's like way different in that, and he's been doing it for a little bit longer than you have, clearly, and different
for that aspect for sure,
and different routes and how to go about starting brands, way different.
Oh yeah, and I remember, he referenced it. I was out in Oakland. God, it was probably a year and a half ago. I was doing another thing with another brand. And I went to dinner with him, and we went and talked, and he was just kind of talking about it. He's like, "Oh, you should really do their shoe." And that's when when I was telling you, I'm like, "Yeah, I don't really know. I'm not too sure." Right. But he was like, "Bro," he's like, you know how to do this." And I was just kind of like, kind of yesing him to death, like, all right. But then, we agreed on doing a shoe together, so that part was happening. But like for myself, that was totally unheard of. I still wasn't ready to take that leap yet.
Is it more of because you were worried about how the public might perceive it, or just didn't want to deal with it?
Probably a little bit of both.
Okay.
Because, at the time it was kind of like, when I don't know how to do something, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to stick to what I know. And, I know I'm good at playing baseball. I'm not going to go try and swim. Right. Something like that. Okay. So, when he said it just seemed really foreign. It's kind of like, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to keep doing this. But I would humor him, and, he would do his part and whatever. And I just didn't really see it. At least at the time, it just didn't seem right for me to even try to even think about it. But, you know, working with, and I remember when we were doing the idea for the shoe.
Right.
He was like, yeah, we should do the shoe. I'm like, all right. And then, like, literally the next day, he, like, emails me the pattern. He's like, all right. He goes, so we going to do this? I'm like, oh, we're really doing this. Okay. So, you know, I just started scribbling away, and, you know, whatever. And then that colorway came out, and, you know, I had something a little different, and we tweaked it. And, you know, when he first did it, it wasn't the Vulture. It was something else. So
really?
he switched it, and it was supposed to be a high top. And I was like, I'm like, can we do this as a low top? Because I don't wear high tops like that. Unless it's like a short one. And then he was like, yeah, I'm actually working on a low top. So then he put on that, and I was like, yeah, that's it.
So when does it come out?
Where that went? We're shooting for Veterans Day. Because
that's right. He did say that.
But since it's, you know, being tied in with the charity for the veterans, because, you know, obviously Dev's a vet, and my dad was a Army veteran. So, you know, that was important to me, and obviously Devlin's all about doing that. So, you know, any portions of the profits going for me, it's going to go towards that charity.
Oh, that's cool. So, and that's how that works too. Like, you guys, like, I don't know. I hate asking certain questions because it's more out of curiosity. But I've always wanted to know, like, how do collaborations work when it comes to, like, the money?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have no idea. I couldn't even answer it.
Okay. All right.
Because at that part of it, I mean, like that shoe's going to be totally launched through his site, and he's going to handle that part of it. I just kind of was happy to work with my boy and make something cool, and it's going to help a lot of people.
So how long have you guys known each other?
What's that?
How long have you guys known each other? Or?
God, it's got to be at least 10 years.
Oh, really?
I mean, I knew Dev when he was, like, still, you know, just making shoes when he was still, like, out here, like in New York and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he's been around for a while. I remember, like, back in, like, Facebook groups. I'm like, and he was still always the same guy. He has not changed. I'm like, who is this dude just talking wild on the pages? You know, and he was always that way, and he definitely has not changed no matter what. I mean, when him on the Breakfast Club, that was him 100%. He was just turned up to 1,000.
Yeah, you know, Devlin, that's the homie. You know, he had messaged me too. You know, and you know, he's somebody that, like, he always takes care of, you know, his people and whatnot. And, you know, I think, you know, when I look at on his end, and I'm sure you're going to deal with it, you know, when it comes to, you know, building your own personal brand of sneakers. You know, sneakerheads, like you said, the customer base is just so weird. Like, your customer base and his customer base, like, I keep trying, I tell my friends, I say, you know, with Mache, his customer base might not necessarily be all sneakerheads. It's going to be a lot of people who just like you and friends and want to support you. And, you know, with Devlin, that's the same thing as well. I see a lot of people that buy his sneakers and they post them. And if you look on their social media pages, they don't have any other sneakers on there. Like, they've never, they're not sneaker people. They just say, like, oh, man, he's from the Bay Area. I want to support him. He's a black-owned business. I like him. He's cool. I want to support him. And boom, that's where it goes. So I definitely, you know, I'm glad you want to keep it going. Like, I don't want you to stop here. I don't want it to fade away. You know what I mean? Because I know how creative you can be, and I want to see, like, everything. I want to see the other colorways. Like, I want to know. Do you already have the names for the other ones?
Oh yeah, but I'm not going to tell you yet.
Okay. I was surprised you told me how much they're going to cost, because I knew once made in America, I said, "Whoo, these joints might cost a hitter."
Yeah, and I think it was again a good median. I think it's kind of right in that ballpark of what makes sense given, you know, what you're getting.
Yeah, oh no. Like, everything with it looks like it's definitely gonna be worth the money on that side. So, like, did you have? So, like, you know, another question I wanted to ask too was, like, you know, when you're younger and growing up, and, you know, I was there as well. You know, you're drawing sneakers at your desk. You know, you take one sneaker and you draw it, and you want to do all this stuff. When you went through the process of, like, building it and understanding it, was there limitations on what you could actually do? Like, you know, I want to put this here, I want to do this here, or is this sort of like an open thing and they'll make it work?
For the most part, it was pretty open, only because, I mean, I think a good kind of comparison is if someone goes to, like, make a Nike Bespoke sneaker, and you go in there and you kind of get overwhelmed with all the different, you know, colors and materials and all that stuff. And, like, I think just me already kind of knowing what I think works and what doesn't work helped. So it kind of erases that part of it, because I know a lot of times if I have, a custom, client coming in that has this crazy idea and I know it's not going to work, that's kind of my job to suggest something else to make it work. So I think that certainly helped. But, anything that was like a no-go might have just been like, oh, can we use this? And like, nah, because, it maybe the material's not thick enough to hold the shape or something like that. Like things that I wouldn't have known unless they told me, because they're professionals.
Is Sneaker Customizing? Hold on. Sorry a second.
Hello,
I was going to text you at the car.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mosh. I had someone came in. I was
I
going
just want to drop this stuff off.
Oh, okay.
I have some stuff from Floppy Action for you.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that's cool right there.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. You could have threw it in the car when I unlocked it.
I didn't see it. Do you want me to put it in your...
No, it's all right. That's all good, this guy.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. I'll text me when you get the car and I'll unlock it.
Okay.
All right. Cool. All right. Told you I said what up.
All right.
All right. Later. Sorry about that. Somebody dropped some shoes off, actually. The Fikes from the other week. So
nice. Which color?
The black pair.
There you go.
Which
That's a good one.
Yeah, George got me a pair, because like the drop of those were so weird. Like the white gold ones that came out, and then everybody got an email. A lot of people got an email saying, "Hey, go ahead and buy them right now." Like that's how George. Yeah, which was crazy. Like
I won't tell you how I got mine.
How you got? Okay, I guess you got yours different than everybody else.
Yeah.
You got relationships with buying and everybody else. Yeah.
It's funny. I actually told a story because Kith had sent me actually that pair, the pink toed pair, and before him, because I was at the original launch of the 242 pack in Queens. Actually, it wasn't Queens. It was at David Z. And the same night, I was actually delivering shoes to the Jizza from Wu-Tang.
Oh my God! Word.
Same night.
That's my number one lyricist.
Yes, I heard the episode.
One of my favorite rappers.
Liquid Swords is classic.
One of the best albums of all time.
Yeah. Then then you go into Beneath the Surface, and then it kind of gets a little weird. But yeah. So I was delivering the shoes to the Jizza, and this is actually before 8 Diagrams came out. So he was like, do you smoke? I'm like, no, I don't do that. So he's like, go hang out, listen to some of the tracks from the new album. I'm like, Jizza, I would love to hang out, but actually my boy's DJing at this party up in Manhattan. I gotta leave. So I had to leave the Jizza to go to this party today. I didn't even know who Ronnie Feig was at the time. My boy was actually DJing the event because he worked at Complex, and I actually DJed with him up in college, and he now worked at Complex at the time. And I was just going to support him. Didn't know it was like a sneaker event or nothing. Right. So rolled up, and it was this ASICS event, the 3 colorways, and I just saw 3 bright colored ASIC Jelly 3s, and I ended up buying 2 pairs because I couldn't afford to buy all 3 back then. So anyway, like I went to this party and it was Ronnie's thing, and these people wearing Kith shirts. I'm like, what the hell is Kith? Like, what is that? Right. And but then fast forward, whatever, 10 years or so, and now he's got this conglomerate and got stores everywhere, and it's crazy. And actually, I had told him that story a couple years ago. I was like, I know you don't remember this, but, and I told him, he goes, that's actually a pretty awesome story. I'm like, yep, pretty much. And I was like, the fact that I blew up the Jizza to go to your damn party.
I mean, that sounds like a night.
Yeah, it was interesting. That's for sure.
Has it been difficult to how do you get to your level of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, there's so many customizers out there who would love to be at Masha's level. And you've worked with everybody. Like, I've seen you in pictures and give sneakers to everybody in parties and stuff like that. And has it just been a very fortunate situation for you, right place at the right time, or?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of luck. It's a lot of just, being a man of your word and maintaining relationships and, doing right by others, just being a functioning adult for the most part. I think, after so long, you build a reputation of, whatever level of work and, kind of character and things like that. And people, sometimes just buy the person and not just the work. So I think it's a good balance of both. I highly doubt you could find someone who says that, Mosh, is a dick or whatever. Right. I don't know if I can curse or not, but like something like that. I just have a reputation for that. and it's not like I'm trying to be like a certain person. It's just how I've been raised. Coming from a trailer park, I had no reason to be braggadocious. I've always been humble, and I always know that I could lose it any day. So I'm never gonna act like I'm too big for my britches. You know what I mean?
Right. Which is a good thing, like I said, that's why I was sort of worried about, having the conversation, because I was like, oh man, he's so cool. Like, and I was like, I don't want to make him feel bad or mad or nothing, like,
Nah, and like I said, when I first heard, I was just like, at first I was, if you say someone like comment on your post and you see 100 people that say something good, then one person says negative, you just want to go right at that negative person.
Right.
I was like, no, I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, first of all, I was like, it's not like everyone's gonna like this thing, and that's totally fine. And I'm not even saying you didn't like it, just
right.
Like whatever. But it was just like it just was what it was. But then, again, being a fan and kind of understanding, it's like take a step back. It's kind of like if you go and tweet something, you want to sit there and look at it for a minute and be like, all right, am I going to regret this in 10 minutes if I say something crazy or something wild
right.
before you hit send? So I just kind of learned to just not think emotionally and just kind of think more like, all right, perception and kind of protecting my own character and don't act on emotion. You know what I mean? Right.
And I always hope that sometimes, even like when we give our opinions on this show, that like they can back it up. And sometimes the show is it's entertainment sometimes, but we traditionally mean, and we 100% mean and back up everything that we feel. And I think it's awesome that you heard it and said, hey, I want to come on here and give a little bit more background to it. And I know for 100% fact, I feel completely a little bit different about it. Like, I'm like, okay, you know what? I still feel this way about it, but I am more intrigued by it and what's more to come. And I respect the process of it. Like, I respect hard work, man. Like, and the decision making when it comes to saying, I'm going to do this. It takes guts. Like, it takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there with this, because like I said, the creator ego, man, like, I'll be honest with you, we took forever to make like merch. I hate using that word. Yeah. Merch is such a weird word. And I remember like when we first started the pod, we're like episode 12. Yo, you guys got hoodies, t-shirts. I'm like, man, I haven't done nothing yet. Like, why on earth would you want to buy this? Like, right. I and then and I'm like, I have no idea what I would put on something. Put your guys' faces on it. Use the logo. Like, why would you wear my face?
Exactly.
Like, no, I will never.
And we still, and the thing is, like, even though I'm established, like, we still have that feeling. My wife says, she goes, I don't even want to wear your thing on me. Right. Like, why do you expect someone else to? So and then, it's like, yeah, so, like, you know what your name is.
Yeah, and so it's funny that like when we finally made hats, and like it was our first one. It was like we wanted to do Dodger colors because we're from LA. We love the Dodgers, and it sold out on us. I was like, oh, okay, that was weird. Like, and then it was like people mad, like I want one, and I think I learned too that more like, and our hats are really good, like really nice, and I think I learned is that like people really just support. If you do something that have done something like, and not to say in their lives, but like, man, if I can fill in 2 hours out of your work week with this ridiculous podcast, I'm cool. You know what I mean? And people look for that. They say, man, you make the work week, God, that when it drops, it makes it go by so much faster. And even the long episodes, they're like, man, I could come back to it the other day. I could do an hour each day. Like, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I like that,
No, I agree. And the thing is with podcasts, like my studio is about 40 minutes away from my house. So like podcasts are how I get through. So it's always good when you get a good one and you then subscribe it and whatever. So I obviously appreciate what you guys do too.
Do you have anything in the pipeline, you're working on, or just taking on a bunch of orders?
I mean, NFL season is cracking, hopefully. So a lot of NFL stuff's happening still, planning.
So you've done a lot of cleats already, or you already the process?
I already probably have like 30 pairs in my studio waiting to get done to the season.
Man,
so,
really?
Between my regulars and then just, one-offs and whatever. And, then private orders and different things. One of the things I think people kind of get this notion is that I just do stuff for celebrities and like brands, and obviously a lot of people do know me for that kind of stuff,
right? But
I do stuff for normal guys too. I don't do as much as I used to, just because I'm usually doing so many last minute orders for like a brand or a celebrity and whatever, so I understand that. I don't want people waiting forever, so I've stopped taking on a lot of stuff. But
how, like, do you do them all?
Yeah, with the artwork, I do have an assistant who helps me. Like, he'll do like base colors or prep and things like that.
Okay.
You know, like things that like you can be taught on like a YouTube tutorial, like it's a process, like that part of it. Okay. You know, he can do that stuff. But you know, people are coming to me for artwork. Like I have a distinct style of like high detailed artwork. So you know, when you're coming for a Mache custom, you're going to get Mache's hands on. Not doing like an Andy Warhol where you got interns doing that. I'm stamping my name on it. We're not at that point yet.
Okay. Is there anything you wouldn't do? Personally,
I wouldn't do?
Yeah.
Probably like Trump shoes.
Okay, just Trump or political period?
Anything political, like anything like that. Because I've been asked to do stuff. I'm like, I just not my wheelhouse. But things like that. I mean, I just don't need the drama. I don't need anyone's opinion on that stuff.
So a lot of the athletes reach out to you, or is this like just the relationship you've built and it's just continued, or do you reach out to them, say, hey, you looking for anything this season? Or
a little bit. It's mostly them reaching out. Or again, kind of how you're asking how I kind of got where I am. It's just working on relationships I already had. Okay. You know, like Stephon Diggs is my regular. That's my guy. Like every week we're gonna do at least one pair a week. You know, I'm a Vikings fan, so we get a lot of the Vikings, and we got a couple other guys that are gonna be getting cleats every single week. Like I got Jarvis Landry this season, so I'm excited to work with him just because he's a creative guy and he has a lot of ideas. So I'm excited to see what we do. And then every once in a while, like if I see someone that like I think has a style that might vibe with me, you know, I'll reach out and just kind of be like, you know, hey, I don't know if you've seen my stuff, whatever. And usually my rule of thumb with that kind of stuff is if I do solicit somebody, you know, the first pair is on me because obviously I approach them. But if they come to me, then obviously, you know, they're paying for their stuff. I
think you live or are, you know, man, like I find it amazing that business is working like so well for you. Like it just sounds like such a difficult thing to leap into and then go full steam ahead that, you know, I see all the customizers that follow us. There's so many customizers that follow us and message us and, you know, things like that. And, you know, and I see their work and then beginning out and starting out. And I think you're probably the dream, like their dream. Like they want to get to that point one day. And I worry that like, is so many out there, is there any more room for it?
No, I think there's always room. I mean, I feel like, you know, when I started, I mean, certainly there was, I could probably count on my two hands how many people were really doing it. But, you know, at this level, I think unfortunately, the social media part of it, and some of these younger guys look at these things and aspire to do that, which is great, but they're in a rush to get there. Like my man, like I was living off the dollar menu. My wife was paying my bills when I was starting out. Like, you know, like she was supporting me to get my dream going. You know, it wasn't always like I didn't have that. I could just DM an athlete and be like, hey, I want to do shoes for you. Like I had to like take a day off from work, go to New York City and give someone a pair of shoes that they didn't even want. Right. You know, and like it did spend the whole day. Like that was the kind of grind I had. And, you know, I think that mentality is always there. Like I've always been competitive. I've always, you know, I played sports, college sports. So like I was always competitive. I never wanted to lose. And even like, I think that carries over even like with the Centralia, like the Mache run thing, you know, I don't want this to fail because, you know, I don't like losing at all.
I don't think you will. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there who I feel should have one. You know what I mean? Like I had brought up a couple other people that have like sneakers now for some odd reason.
And I think I saw that. And, you know, Nightwing, I'm happy for him. I mean, he's been doing his thing and doing the stuff. And then, you know, what's his name?
Seth Fowler.
Seth. Yeah, Seth's a good dude. I mean, he's a nice guy, and like,
sure he is.
I mean, hey, if he has the opportunity to make a shoe, I mean, why not? I mean, from what I saw, you know, I guess some people like this, some people didn't, whatever. But no, I mean, it is what it is. But but taking that risk, like when you put yourself out there for judgment, I mean, it's scary, dude. I mean, even every time I paint a shoe and I put it out there, you're opening yourself up for judgment and ridicule, no matter what. Like you signed up for it as soon as you put it out. So it's tough. And it's like you said, you know, as a creator, you know, we're very protective and very proud of what we put out. So it's kind of like when you do a drawing and show your mom, you know, it's supposed to be a portrait of Eddie Murphy. And she's like, oh, that's who's that? Like Bill Clinton or whatever. And you're like, nah, it's supposed to be Eddie Murphy. Like,
right.
It's that feeling, just multiplied by a couple thousand.
Right.
It's tough.
And see, like I look at you and I say, like, even what you've said about Devlin, you guys have been doing customized sneakers for so many years and stuff. I feel like stuff like that is earned. Like you have like earned the right and the respect from the sneakerhead community to say, oh yeah, Mosh should have a shoe. Like most definitely. Like it's not even a question. When I see like other people like, we just like sneakers, you should have a shoe. No. Like people of like, people and the people that listen to the podcast, they say a lot of stuff. Oh man, you guys should be helping out Nike make sneakers. No, we shouldn't. Like I never want anybody to think that our regular critiques or something like that means that we could do something better. We talked about it a little bit, like Nike IDs. Man, you know how many times I've created something on Nike ID and I was like, oh man, this looks like it might be fire. But I'm like, I'm sure this sucks. Like I don't even have the guts to pay for my Nike ID because I'm not sure how comfortable it looks. You know what I mean? So like I do.
I get it.
Yeah, and I respect it, and I understand what you do. One thing I wanted to ask, I had watched the YouTube video when you had painted the one for the historical, like the black golfers for Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. How often, if ever, do you mess up?
It happens sometimes. It was that one, right, where I smeared stuff on.
Yeah, that was one that you smeared, and I think that was probably an easier fix for you.
Nah, but there's been some other ones. I remember I did a pair for Lonzo Ball's mom, and I was actually on like they had like the reality show for a while,
right,
like on like Facebook or something. Yeah. But I was in an episode, and they wanted to do a pair of Big Baller brand shoes with portraits of LeVar and Melo and all of them for her. And I remember I painted them, and I totally jacked up LeVar's face. And my wife, she's like, his eyes are like too close together. And I was like, fuck. I'm like, and I was like scrambling to try and like fix them.
Right.
And like I was freaking out because again, this is going to be on like their TV show, and at the time that was kind of at the height of their popularity, with that stuff, because it was like. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. So it does happen. Thankfully, that's why the Lord invented acetone and more paint, so you can just kind of go over it and whatever. But it certainly does happen. That's always why there's always a scrap bin or something like that.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. I always was like, man, like I saw that part when you had like kind of smeared it, and I was like, oh, that might not be too hard. I don't know.
Yeah. It's only when it's like over like someone else's face or a portrait that I already did, because you spend a couple hours like blending it to make it look the way it did. Then it's like I have a big white splotch of paint covering. I'm like, oh my god, you can't like acetone it off, because then you take off the whole face.
Right.
So you have to kind of camouflage it or do something, but it can definitely mess up your day. That's for sure.
One of the last things I did want to ask you, and this is just a general sneaker question. You're obviously a sneakerhead, and been doing this for a very long time. Has there anything that's surprised you over the last 15, 20 years that you just never would have thought would have ever happened?
Going through my phone, just seeing people I talk to on like regular conversations, I would have never thought. You go through like, this is my life, and I still say that. It's kind of a little more normal,
right? But
it's still wild that like Dan from the trailer park is like talking to like Steph Curry or whatever rapper.
Right.
It's wild. Like I would have never thought that, and especially doing something that I like doing, because before I kind of got back into doing shoes, I was doing door-to-door sales and doing all kinds of other stuff and making no money. And now it's like I'm doing what people would look at as a dream, being on the field during the Minneapolis Miracle, and like all these crazy things. Like what? Like, this is my life. It's crazy. I still can't believe it sometimes. And that's why you have your significant other be like, all right, go take up the trash. To kind of bring you back to earth.
Right. No, that's dope, man. You have any advice for any customizers or anybody out there? Actually, you have any advice for just creators, man?
I think you just can't be in a rush. I think we're in such a microwave society that you just want the instant gratification, that you got to understand that overnight success really does take 10 years. I think there's so much stuff that goes on. They just kind of see the highlight reel, and knowing that you're putting your best foot forward, that there's always a lot more to it than just what you see. No matter what, whether it's struggles, your favorite athlete or celebrity is probably dealing with the same BS at home that you are. but they're not telling you about it.
Right.
So I think you just have to understand that, comparing yourself to other people, there's no way that you're going to be happy doing that. Just focus on the things you can control, which is how you react to things and your own, progress. I think that's very important. Be happy for me and what I'm doing, but don't be like, I want to do what he does. Be like, I'm happy for Mache, I'm going to do my own thing. I think that's probably the best advice I can give somebody.
I think that's good advice. Like I said, in our area, at one point it was like this many sneaker podcasts, and now it's like this many sneaker podcasts, and it
Right.
makes you feel a certain way at some point. And I'm sure you've gone through the exact same thing. I mean, there are so many sneaker customizers out there. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, there's so many out there. It's not even fun. I see YouTube videos of everybody doing something and something and something, and I'm like, man, you were just whatever. And I have personal friends who are doing it, and they're getting into it, and they're taking orders, and they're doing stuff, you know what I mean? And, I think it's just, being able to, like you said, focus on yourself, stay in your own lane, keep doing, understand it doesn't come overnight. There's a lot of people who stopped, that first, year they thought they'd be out there hanging out with, Quavo and everybody, and no,
Right.
It didn't happen, so they're like, forget this, this messed up. I thought I would have 1 billion YouTube subscribers, and, so... I respect that.
Yeah, I figure I didn't meet Quavo till year 14. Keep that in perspective.
And that's a good thing to do. Like I will tell you, like probably the last year and a half, like I mean, we've always gotten a lot of attention from a lot of people, and we get field emails and DMs and stuff like that. But I would say like the last couple of years has been like really, really picking it up, and it's where a lot of it is more for ourselves, where it's like it makes you feel good, like okay, you're doing something right. It's just like. That's all that matters to me. You know what I mean? Like, I just care that, like I'm going to tell you, like, you DM'd me. I was like, did somebody tell him? Like, did he? And then you said you listen. I was like, you listen to us? Like, I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, I'm like, I like that. Like, I was like, dang, like, I feel like I see you, standing next to Steph Curry. Like, the heck, he got time to listen to this little sneaker podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, hey, everybody has to go home at some point in their normal life.
Right.
Everyone, like I said, with me, I listen to more podcasts. I do music now, which is kind of crazy.
Way more. And I think that happens, like, you just, like, I don't know, as you get older, like, your mind just opinions, and you're into politics, and you're into everything. And
oh, yeah. Like, you would never thought when you were a kid, you're like, why is they listen to the news or, like, talk radio? Like,
oh, yeah. I used to hate when my dad would listen to, like, talk radio or sports talk in the car.
Exactly.
Like, oh my gosh. But now I'm sitting there like yelling at the radio, yelling at the podcast, firing off tweets, you're getting all this stuff off. So, but no, Mache, I appreciate you coming on talking to me, man. I appreciate you talking to me as late as it is out there where you are. You got a family and kids and stuff, and I do as well. I appreciate your wife, and you could be spending time with them, but you decided to give us a little bit of your time.
Hey, and like I said, I appreciate you giving me the platform. And like I said, like it's one of those things where, I like to talk about stuff that I'm passionate about, and if people are willing to listen and understand, I guess other things. I'll ramble for hours. I mean, it's one of those I could talk shoes forever. So,
and I love it. I love it.
Cool, man.
I wish you nothing. Yeah, of course. I wish you nothing but success, man. I love it. I can't wait for them to come out. I want nothing but the best, and I can't wait to see what's coming up next for you, man.
Yeah, you and me both.
All right, Mache. I'll talk to you later, man. I appreciate the time, though.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Later.
Thanks.
All right. I think that hung up. I don't think he's still on the line. Appreciate everybody who likes, subscribe, listen to the podcast. It was a little different, the conversation. If you had heard the last episode, I had made a few comments regarding his shoe, and he actually hit me up and wanted to talk about it. And I love that. And I've said that a lot about all brands and people all the time. If we say something you don't like, please feel free to come on here and elaborate and explain and describe, or tell us to shut the F up. Like, it's perfectly fine. That's what this podcast is for. That's what this platform is for. I hope anybody who's a creator took something from this, learned something. I did. I listened to what he said. You will look at a Mache timeline. All you got to do is type in Mache in Google, Mache Customizer, the most articles and revered and reviews and everything about him. And he's worked hard and he's earned it. And, one day for myself, and I think a lot of other people who are creators in their niche field within their own lives, they want the same success. So it's good to hear somebody say, I've been doing this for this long and I didn't meet this person until this, year of my career. And man, I enjoyed the conversation. And to hear Mosh say that he listens to us and, stuff like that it makes you feel good. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna, it makes you feel good. It's like, dang, like you at some point reached him and you didn't even know it. He's never posted about us. He's never said anything about us, never messaged me. I've never had a conversation with him ever. And, just like that, something that you create can reach out and, now I have a connection on that side of the, another connection on that side of the country, and like I said, it's really late where he's at. It's late where I'm at, but, I appreciate him. Like, subscribe, review, all that. Hopefully George is back next week. I don't know. If not, one thing you can count on, we'll be back next week. I'll be back next week. Have Andy in the studio, something like that. Do a top 10, get back to it, talk a little bit more direct with sneakers. But, it's always good to learn something from somebody that you didn't know and pick up some tips and go from there. Nothing else. That's the Sneak Diz. Pow, 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 pow.